So this is our lesson for the Mac users for Chapter 4 on datasets and tables, the part A1 for the preliminary part. There'll be 2 more videos after this. So this is the file I have posted for us to work with. And the first thing we're going to look at is that here we have a relatively small data set, only 24 entries in the particular information, but we need to be able to handle and figure out how to do things when we have very large data sets, so maybe 250 or 250,000 or 25,000 rows of data. And what we're going to need to do is have a nice way of navigating or viewing our screen or viewing our data so that we know the context of our data. And how we're going to do that is via our View tab and freezing panes. And we can see here in the Mac Excel ribbon, we've got freeze pane, freeze top row, and freeze first column. So let's see what happens when we go freeze top row. What we can see here, and I'm just going to get rid of my grid lines on my sheet so we can see it a little bit better. We have this horizontal line that has come up because I had freeze top row. And notice because I have freeze top row selected, the unfreeze pane comes up as an option. What that does is that when I cursor down, my row 1 stays the same. And when I cursor across, again, I consistently see row 1. So let's go Control G to get back to A1. So we go back to the top. And I'm just going to unfreeze my panes. For the freezing first column, I'm just going to put my cursor somewhere else. And if I go freeze first column, we can see now instead of a horizontal line, we have a vertical line. Now this time around, row 1 doesn't stay the same, so when I cursor down, I lose it. But when I cursor to the right or left, I'm always seeing that column A. So notice how we didn't necessarily have to be in, what is it? We didn't necessarily have to be in a particular cell in order for that freeze row or freeze column to work. So I'm just going to go A1 here so I can come up. And why is this not working? Okay, somehow created a new sheet, so let's delete that. And let's come back to our raw data and let's go Control G. I want to go to A1 and enter. And I'm in A1 again. Why is this not working? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm back over here. And I'm just going to unfreeze my panes. So same type of thing with the freeze top row. I could be down over here and go freeze top row. I get that horizontal line and I can cursor up and down and to the right and left, and I'll still have that row 1 static. So I'll go unfreeze panes. And you can actually see in the little diagrams with the icons, freeze first column, there's the leftmost column, freeze top row, here's the topmost row. In the freeze panes icon though, you can see how the selected cell is the little gray box, and that will freeze both the row above it and the row to the left of it. So if I come here to B2 and I click on freeze panes, now I see that horizontal line, so row 1 is frozen, and I see the vertical line, so column B is frozen. When I scroll down, I can see column A and row 1. I scroll to the right, I can still see column 1, but now column B is also frozen. Okay. And then I can unfreeze the panes. Now, something a little different about this, what I'm going to do is insert some rows here. So how do you do this on we'll just keep doing it this way. I'll insert 3 or 4 rows here. Oops. Do one more. And I'll put some different, I don't want that task pane. Let's get rid of that. I'll put some different information here. Maybe I'll put a title here in row 2, and we'll just call it delivery data. And maybe I'll go to my home tab and give that a style. So where's the styles here? Cell styles. Let's call that heading 1. Okay, and maybe I'll do that across the entire table. So I'll go cell styles and heading 1. Okay. Now notice something. If I want rows 1 to 4 also to remain visible, but I also want row 5 to remain visible also, I would have to be in A6, go to view, and now I can go, if I go freeze top row, it's just going to freeze row 1. But if I go freeze panes, now rows 1 to 5 are all frozen. Now, because I was in column A, no column is being frozen. Had I wanted column A frozen, I'd have to be over here and into B6. But notice something different. I'll unfreeze my panes. And I'm just going to cursor down a little bit so I can't see. I'm not good at cursoring in the Macs, so I can't see rows 1 and 2. And if I do the same thing, go into A6 and freeze panes, well, now when I scroll down, yep, that stays static. But if I try to scroll up to see rows 1 and 2, I can't see them, so they're not visible. So you have to be careful. I'm going to unfreeze my panes. If I want to be able to see all of the rows above where I'm going to freeze, I have to be able to see them on my spreadsheet when I do that freeze panes. So I'll be in A6 again, I'll go freeze panes, and now when I scroll down, I can see rows 1 to 5. Okay, so that's for the freezing and unfreezing of columns, rows, and then the different panes. And I'm just going to unfreeze them for now for us. The other thing that's very important with larger data sets is being able to print them in a relatively easy manner. So the easiest way to do that is to come again under View tab to the page break preview. And Excel takes a look at your information and it sort of breaks it up into what it thinks are logical pages. Now the dotted lines here, those are page breaks that Excel has put in. And if I move them around, so say for example, I move this over here to FG, see how it changed to a solid line? Well, that's now a page break that I have manually placed. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to maybe bring this one over to between columns K and L, and then maybe I'll bring this one over to between columns P and Q. So now they're all solid lines because those are the ones that I have chosen. Okay, and the zoom here is just the zoom factor for seeing the screen. Now on this view, we don't really see what we're sort of interested in as far as page break preview. So what we're going to do is come up to our page layout. And this is where we'd want to be in page break preview, or page break view, I should say, to see how the pages are going to be broken up. But now if I want to do more than just say move pages around a little bit, and I can move the vertical ones, or I can move the horizontal ones, now you can see that the only thing printed will be what's sort of highlighted or not grayed out here, or I can bring it down. I could bring it in, say, well, I don't want that part to be included. I can pull it out. Let's maybe put it to there. And now we're back at the 4 pages. But these are the icons that we're going to be using. We had taken a look at margins before, previously in the course, and we have normal, wide, narrow, or we can click on custom margins and put in the information. In the margins, we can also locate our data. Right now, it's top left justified, and now I could center it horizontally on a page, or I could center it vertically on a page. Now the vertical makes it see it's centered vertically, and then the horizontal is not really showing here because I have a bunch of different page sizes, but if this was to the top left, horizontally would push it towards the center. We've also seen headers and footers before. So notice when I clicked on the margins and picked the custom margins, it brought me to this margin window, but it's part of the page setup window, which we could go directly to by clicking this page setup icon. But there's the footers again, and we had seen footers before where we can put custom footers, and maybe I'll just go, I'll put my name here, but I'll spell it right. I'll put the sheet name code in the center and the file name code in the end. And I'll just change the font of the file name code. I'll make it very small so it doesn't overlap. And we'll go okay and okay. On the sheet part of this is where we can set up the print area. So you can see that the print area is currently A1 to X29. Okay, we could say that maybe there's different rows I want to repeat at top. So I can come here, go into the little dialog box and say, okay, I want to repeat rows 1 to 5. And then maybe I also want to repeat some columns on the left, and maybe I want columns A and B. Okay, so that's something else we can do in the sheet. We could show our grid lines, we can show the row and column headings, we can control the how things are printed, whether it goes, page 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4 across. So down and over, or versus over then down. And then finally, in the page tab, we can change the orientation, we can adjust the scaling, we could make it all fit on one page, and we could maybe put first page number, maybe it's page 25, it has to fit in a report. And I'll just go, okay. You can see, because I've done some different options in that window, that Excel is coming up and saying, okay, well, it looks like it'd be better to put page breaks where these dotted lines are. I'm going to force it back though. So I'm going to force them back to where they were, and now it's all okay. We can see here, so again, we could get that through the page setup, same tabs. Now notice when I came back into page setup, it automatically adjusted the scaling. And what is that scaling based on? It's based on how I've outlined these pages. I could change it again, make it smaller, make it larger. If I make it larger, let's go 105 and go okay. Notice how Excel now says, well, for that scaling, these are the pages that are going to have to work, but I'm just going to push it out this way and Excel will automatically change that for me. Now, maybe I also want, instead of just pages 1 to 4, maybe I want 8. So I'm going to put my cursor here in A17, and under this break area, I'm going to come here and I'm going to go insert page break. So now instead of 4 pages, I have 8. And notice that the page break goes above A17, the active cell I selected. I can come back to breaks and remove the page break. I can come back to breaks and reset all page breaks. The reset brings back the Excel sort of suggested or recommended page breaks. But again, I'm going to put them back to where I want. So I'm going to put here, that one to there. And let's maybe go here. And actually, no, I'm going to put all the table on 3 pages. So it's maybe, no, that's not gonna, and see how you can sort of play with it a little bit, right? There we go, sort of back to the 4 pages now. Now, for example, maybe I wanted to change what it is I'm actually printing. Maybe I don't want this whole thing printed. Maybe I only want this table printed. So I can select what I want printed, go to the print area, and set the print area. Notice now how the white highlighted is only my selection. Everything else around it is gray. If I wanted to bring it back, I can extend, the pages out and it'll do that. Or I could come back here to the print area and I could clear the print area, and then Excel goes back to its suggested default. Okay, so a number of different things in the page setup. Now, we're not going to look at doing different backgrounds. That's a little bit more advanced for us. This is just being able to set up proper pages. Now, ultimately, what we would like to do is get into a print preview area. So notice in page setup, unlike what we see in class, we don't have a print preview here. So we're going to cancel it there, and we'll come up and we'll go into our file menu and we'll pick up the print. And this is where we have in the Mac version of Excel, the print preview. So you can see there's the 4 pages. There's my footer along the bottom. There's no printer currently selected. I can sort of cycle through them and say, okay, that looks all right. Now we can also, decide what kind of printer to use. So I don't have a printer set up with this particular computer. I can come down here and say, you know what, I just want to save it as a PDF. This is actually a handy thing to do because if I save it as a PDF, it brings up where do you want to save it. I'll just put it in, I guess I'll put it in over in Documents under Me, and I'll call it, I'm going to save it as, just call it Test. Okay, I'll call it Test Val, and I'll go Save. And then what I can do is I can then go back and double check this. So I'm going to make my window smaller. I'm going to come to my Mac file folder. I'm going to come to my Documents, Me. There's my test. And now I can open up that PDF. And this is where I can say, okay, you know what? Let's see if this looks like what I want it to look like. And I can say, okay, well, let's sort of cycle through the different pages and go from there. And if we're happy with it, then we can actually send it straight to a printer. But sending it to a PDF is a nice way of, number one, saving your file in PDF format, but then also number two, being able to take a look at it and say that whether you think it's okay or not. And I'm just going to get rid of that for now. So that's an option that we can always use. And I'll bring my Excel back up. We're going to just say okay, and we're going to come up here and maximize our window again. There we go. So, the print preview, the row titles, the column titles, the margins, the orientation, the size of our paper. We could pick, legal size paper, whatever kind of paper we like. We can set our print area, do our breaks, set our print titles. And again, notice when you click on these different icons, they all open up this page setup window. That's why for me, I figure, you know what? Why not just go to the page setup immediately? And then everything's there. Then I don't have to keep going back to icons. Let's go back to normal view. So we'll go to view and normal view, and we'll start doing a couple of other things. So to recap so far, under the View tab, we took a look at freezing panes, either the pane, the top row, or the first column. And then we took a look at the page break preview, and then the different page setup under page layout. Now, we had taken a look at a couple of things before when we were doing things like autofill. So things like, putting in 1, 2, and then saying, okay, well, that's a pattern I like, and I'm just going to double click and extend the pattern down. Or we could say that, okay, there's the pattern I like, and I can drag it down. So we just have to count from 1 to 24. Or we could realize that, let's undo that for a minute. We could come to our Home tab, and we can see, actually, no, this is a Mac. So there is under the Home tab, under the Fill, we can see that that's a series. So what we'd have to do is highlight where we want all the information to go Fill, Series, accept the default. We're just counting linearly by 1, and go OK. And that's called auto-filling or autocomplete. We're going to take a look at a different kind of filling now called flash fill. So flash fill, first off, where can we find it? Again, on the Home tab, under Fill, you have flash fill as the last option, or you can go to the Data tab and you have an icon for flash fill. Okay. Now, this is what flash fill means. So I want to take my driver's name in column C, and I want to separate it by first name and last name. And I'm just going to start typing John, and then I'll go enter. And in the row below, the cell below, I'll start typing Peter and enter. And it looks like I'm getting the first name. And we have a quick key that we can go Control E, and it flash fills the rest of the cells. So I don't have to keep typing things. Okay, I'm going to undo that and undo the John and Peter. I'll do the John again, and I'll come to my Data tab and click on Flash Fill. And notice how it did it a little differently this time. This is another one of those quirkiness things with Excel. I find that, things don't always work exactly the same when I try to repeat them in the same cells over and over. So worst case scenario, let's undo that. Let's go Peter. Notice how it's not automatically doing it, but if I go Control E, now it's picked it up completely. So Control E is a nice quick shortcut for flash fill. Let's try the last names. So I'm going to do May. So there's the John May. There's Peter White, although I have to spell it right. Okay, and again, on the data tab, flash fill, and it's picking up the last name. So flash fill is handy because as opposed to having to type everything in and maybe make some typing errors, flash fill helps me to separate a cell that has more than one string in it, more than one word per se, and can separate it into two. I can do a similar thing with something called text to column, and that's again under the data tab, and it's right here in text to columns. So I'm going to select John May. I'm going to say text to columns. Now we're going to come up with a little wizard here, and there's our information, John May, that's the one cell I have selected. It's going to be delimited, and the delimiter is the thing that separates the two words. It's just a space. So I'm going to go to my next window. It picks up that it's just a space. So notice how now it has two columns for John May, whereas previously it had just one. So, and whatever my delimiter was, I could have selected it. Then I can go next, and it says, okay, well, how do you want to format the first one? Well, that will be text. Select the second one. We're going to let that be text also. And now I'm going to change its location, and I'm going to click on F6. And notice it gives an absolute cell reference. And I'm just going to go finish. It's going to say that there's already data there. We can clearly see there's nothing there though. So I'll just okay. And notice how it gave the first and last in those same two cells. Now, if I wanted to do it for everything, I'd select my entire range of cells, text to column, next, space delimiter, check that we have two columns, apply the formatting to the two different columns that I desire, and then put it in the cell I want. So I'll notice I'm only just referencing cell F7 here, but when I go finish and say accept because there's no data there, all my information is quickly put in. Now in our chapter, they do cover flash fill. They don't cover text to column, but again, just showing you a little bit more functionality. So for those situations where you need to separate strings of data or strings of information, you can use flash fill or you can use text to column. Now we had seen before, how to enter a formula. So I'm just going to do the same thing here. So equals for the formula, and we're just going to have price times the number of items, okay? And return. We can double click that little bottom right hand corner, or we can click and drag it down to copy the formula down, okay? I'm showing you some of these different things because in the next lesson, we're going to see how we're going to do the same types of things, but we're going to do them in what we call an Excel table. Now this, we would call it a table of information, but it's technically not an Excel table, and we'll see that next lesson. Now in column N, you can see that I've tried to create some email addresses, and whereas sometimes we want to separate strings of data, sometimes we want to put strings of data together. And the function we can use for that is text join. So you can see that the text join is trying to put together John May with some other information. So let's take a look at the argument window, the formula builder in Mac, and see what it's putting together. Well, first off, it says that I'm going to try and put together something, and those things that are being put together, there's going to be a decimal or a period between them. We're going to ignore empty cells, and then we're going to take the information from cell C6, and we're going to join it with at happy.ca, and that's text, so it has to be in quotes, and here's the result that we get. And I'll just click done, and I'll close that tax pane. And you can see that the The email, let me just blow it up a little bit here. It's not really appropriate, right? Because we have a space between John and May, and we have the decimal between right before the @ symbol, and that's not proper email formatting. Let's try it again with a different text join. So again, we'll bring up our formula builder. So there's the delimiter. There's the true for ignore empty cells. Now this time round, we're going to take the information from D7, and then we're going to add the information from E7, and then we're going to add the information, the third piece, cursor down here to see it, the @happy.ca. And again, we have some help down here. You can get more help, or you can see the different syntax for what you're supposed to put in. And if we click on done and close our task pane, you can see again, it's not quite right. We now have the decimal between the Peter and the White, but we still have it in front of happy. Okay. And I'm just illustrating this to show you how we can take strings and separate them or split them, or take strings and put them together in different ways. And we're going to see next lesson that we can do this email nice and easily, but by putting the data into an Excel table. Let's do one more thing with flash fill here. Let's see if we can use flash fill for getting the destination. So I'm just going to type in Boston, and then I'm going to go Control E. And again, it picks up the pattern. Oh, it looks like you want the information from column L, and it automatically populates it. So again, seconds versus minutes versus maybe hours, depending on how many rows we have of typing in the data. Now, the next thing we want to do on this particular sheet is to take a look at our filtering and our sorting. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get rid of these rows because we don't really need them. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to come in here, and again in our data tab, we're spending a lot of time in data tab this particular lesson, we're going to put filter. And we had seen filters before, and you can see how, well, the filter sort of went in the wrong spot here, right? I don't want filters here. I wanted them in row 1. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to highlight row 1 and now click filter. Okay. So now the filters are going to show up in my header row. Now we had seen this before in this, we've actually used this data set before when we were doing the count if, sum if, and average if functions. And we were using them to check the number of Boston destinations, the number of items, the number of washing machines, etc. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to filter, and I click on my little down arrow, and I'm going to deselect all, and I'm just going to pick Boston. And I'm going to close that little window, and we can see there's 4 destinations with Boston. And we can see that the symbol has changed from just a down arrow to a little filter with the down arrow, indicating that that's a filter. I'm going to come over here now to the first name, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to want to deselect everybody, and I'm just going to pick George, and then I'll deselect. And again, now we have a filter for the first name with just George. So before we had 4 Boston, now we have just 2. So filtering, again, is a nice way to be able to look at just specific parts of our data that we're interested in. Now, if we want to get rid of our filter, we just have to open up our filter window again and clear filter. We'll get rid of that one, and we'll come over here to George, and we'll clear that filter. We could also just pick select all. Okay, so I'm going to go back to George, go close it, and wait a minute. Oh, sorry. I want to deselect everybody. I just want to see George. I'm going to close it. So now we can see George, or I can come back up here, select all, and now we see everybody again. So a couple of different ways there. Now, one of the things that's important to us is that when we are filtering, very often what some of us like to do is we can see that there's sorting options in these windows. And let's see what happens if we say, okay, let's sort it A to Z. So now we have Carl and all the way up to Peter. Let's close that window, and let's now sort by item. And let's do this one in descending order. Well, what happens? Well, yes, now I'm in column H. I've done the H in descending order, but now my first names are not ordered anymore. Okay, so it's overridden it. This is now the primary sort, and that's not sorted anymore. And again, you can see this because here now we have the little sort icon beside the drop down arrow, and there is no little sort icon over here by the first name. If I go undo, you can see here that we do have the sort icon beside the first name. Okay? It's typically best practice to not use the sort option in the filter window. You can use it, but only for when you want to sort by one field. If you want to sort by more than one field, do not use this option. So I'm going to take that filter off. So I'm just going to undo it, and we're back to our normal, our ordered data where it was by order number 1 to 24. Now, if we wanted to do a multi-level sort or a multi-field sort, we would use the sort icon under the data tab. So let's try this. We're going to sort, and we're going to sort by, my list has headers. So I'll use my little arrows here, and it's doing the same thing it did to me before. It's not picking up the names properly. So I'm going to cancel out here. Sometimes strange things happen. So I'm just going to make it a little easier. I'm just going to select my table, go sort, and now it should pick up. Yeah, now it's picking up my header names. And I'm going to sort it by, and let's go last name flash fill. Okay. And then I can add a level and then say, okay, let's sort it by item. And again, we just have A to Z here. We do have options that we could have A to Z, Z to A, or we could create a custom list. Now we're going to want to do a custom list for item, but I'm just going to go okay for now to show you that yes. So we ordered by, and let's just double check, our sort was by last name. So the last names, May comes first, then Noah, then Pavel, then Ramsey, then White. And then we sorted by, and again, that was by item. This is the one disadvantage to the multi-level sort using the icon is that you don't see it in this little arrow at all. So we, under the May, now we have microwaves, then refrigerators, then TVs, and then washing machines. Okay, again, A to Z. Now, if I had wanted this item sorted in a different order, we can create what we call a custom sort. So I could go to sort, come over here for the item, and pick custom list. But my list has to be already pre-created. So I'm going to cancel out of that for now. And we're going to look at how to create a custom list for Mac Excel. So we're going to come up here, go to Excel. Whoops, come back. Where'd it go? Come back, little guy. Excel, Preferences, and then we're going to pick under the Formulas and List, Custom Lists. And this is where we can create our custom list. And I'm just going to pull it over here, and I'm going to say that I want TVs to go first. Then I want refrigerators. Then I want washing machines. And then I want microwave. Okay, and I can add that to my list and just close my window. So notice it's the last one here, starting with TVs. And now when I go into my sort icon, under my item, I can pick my custom list, and now I can find that new list I just created. There it is. I can go okay and okay. And now it's in the order, the item. So May is still the first, still being sorted by the first name, sorry, the last name. And then now the items are in this custom list. So this is a step that you're going to be needing to do in your assignments for chapter 4, where you're going to have what we call a multi-level sort or a multi-field sort. And one of them has you have to create a custom sort. So that's something that you're going to want to create. Now I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to go back to my sort, and I'm going to change this to sort by order number, and I'm going to delete that one. So just use the negative and I'll go okay, just so everything goes back to where it was before. So we've done text to columns, we've done filter, we've done sorting. You can use these also, but again, only if you're going to use it for a single field in my recommendation. Something else we're going to take a look at on this data tab is removing duplicates. So I'm just going to highlight these three. I'm going to copy them and I'm going to paste them right at the beginning. And we're going to insert the copied cells. And I'm just going to hit escape. Where's my escape? There's my escape. So you can see that order numbers 4, 5, and 6, there they are here, and there they are again down here. So sometimes when we have large data sets, depending on different things that happen, different maybe data entry clerks that we have, sometimes there's duplicate data and we need to clean up our data a little bit. So I'm in my information, I go remove duplicates, and we can say that yes, my list has headers, and for us, we're just going to leave everything as the default. We're just going to go okay. And Excel will come up with a little window saying that there was 3 duplicate values found and were removed, and 24 are remaining. And when I go okay, well, now my 4, 5, and 6, they're not showing in order here, so I've messed up my sorting a little bit, but now I only have one instance of them. And if I wanted to fix that sorting, I could just go sort order number smallest to largest and okay. And now we're good to go. So that's another really good feature to be able to use is the removing duplicates. So a number of different things that we've gone through here. We can also do filters on dates. So here's the filter for date. And we have here, we could pick a particular date. Notice how we can expand it out. Okay, we could maybe do blanks. I don't want to select everything. Now everything happens to be in February, so this is not going to work very well here. But you know, we could do some filtering on that if we wanted to. So let's just get rid of that. So you can filter on numbers, you can filter on text, you can filter on you know, prices, amounts type of thing, and even dates. So just to recap everything we've done for this particular lesson, in the View tab, we took a look at the different freeze panes, the top row, the column, the first column, or a particular set of rows and columns. We took a look at the page break preview to help us with printing. We took a look at the page layout, again, to deal with all the different options for printing. The only one we didn't cover was the background. And then obviously looking at the page setup to again go through the different options all in one. We also took a look at doing the file and printing to see what it would actually look like, and then printing to a PDF to be able to see what an actual document might look like when it's actually printed in paper. And then finally, let's go back to our normal view. We spent a fair amount of time in our data tab looking at sorting and filtering, text to columns, flash fill, and removing duplicates. And the additional thing here, you know, we showed how to do flash fill using the Control-E shortcut key. So just to refresh your memory there, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go home. I'm going to clear everything. I'm going to put my borders back. I'm going to start typing John, and then I can start typing Peter if I want, but maybe I don't want to do that. I can just put my cell there. So I'm going to escape for a second. I can come to my data tab, go flash fill, then the letters, the names go in. I'll undo that, or I can go Control-E for the shortcut key, and the first names go in again. So that's a recap for the part A of our Chapter 4 lesson.